You can draw this in Procreate. During this video, I'm going to show you some really nice tricks. So even if you have watched 100 Art with Flow tutorials, this is a must-see. And while you learn those really nice Procreate tricks, you'll create this super cute paper cutout ghost. For this tutorial, we're working on a canvas that is 2,500 pixels by 2,500 pixels. And of course, I have linked the color palette in the description. So if you're ready, let's get started. Let's start by dropping in a color for our background. We'll use the first color in the first row for that. Let's just drop it in. And then let's make a new layer on which we can create our little ghost. Let's tap the plus, and then we are going to turn on the Symmetry tool. We'll go to the wrench, then to Canvas, then turn on the drawing guide, and then tap Edit Drawing Guide. And then here you can tap Symmetry. And you can change the opacity and the thickness of your line, but this is usually fine. Then let's tap Done. And now when you go to your layer, you'll see that it is now assisted. That means that Drawing Assist is turned on and that whatever you draw on the left side of your Symmetry line will also show up on the right side. So that's how you can draw on two sides at the same time in Procreate. Now for our brush, let's use the Studio Pen. It's under inking. It's a Procreate standard brush. And for the color, we'll use, well, what color are ghosts? They are white, of course. So let's use the second color in the first row. Now the opacity of the brush is at 100%, and we can set the size at 20%. And then we'll make a curved shape. Let's start here and then go to the top. For the top of its head, and then on the underside, let's make these curved shapes all the way to the center. You can also hold your pen in place for a nice curve. Then let's drag in the color, and you can adjust it a little bit. Perhaps you have a little bump like I have here. You can just go over, make it more smooth. So you get something like this. Now let's create a face. Let's make a new layer on top. Let's tap the plus, and then let's set this layer to Drawing Assist as well. You can tap here, Drawing Assist. Now Symmetry is turned on for this layer as well. Then let's grab this, the third color in the first row, a very dark color, and let's create two eyes. Let's go about here. Let's make a curved line like this. You can hold your pen in place for a nice smooth curve. Now let's go in here a little bit, make it a little bit thicker, something like this. And since it's paper, you usually won't get these rounded corners, rounded edges when you work on such a small size with your scissors. So let's tap and hold the eraser so that it switches to the Studio Pen. And then let's cut off the bottom part. You can hold your pen in place for your eraser as well. So you get something like this. And then for the mouth, let's grab the brush again. Let's make a line like this. You can hold your pen in place and hold one finger on the screen for a perfectly horizontal line. And then let's make a curve like this. Again, hold your pen in place for a nice smooth curve, and then drop in the color. And now we can make those corners a bit more crisp since this is paper. Let's grab the eraser and make a horizontal line. And again, you can hold your finger on the screen for a perfectly horizontal line. We can zoom out a little bit to easily see our little ghost. Now let's give him two rosy cheeks. Let's do that on a separate layer. Let's tap the plus, and for the color, let's grab this 1/4 color in the first row. And for the brush, since we want to create a perfectly round circle, I want to switch to the monoline brush under calligraphy because this one has like this steady size. The other brush we were using gets thicker as you apply more pressure, but this one will stay the same size, as you can see. And the opacity should be at 100%, and let's set the size to 5%. And let's not forget to turn on Drawing Assist on our layer. Let's tap it, turn on Drawing Assist so we can make two circles at the same time. Let's do that here. Hold your pen in place. Hold one finger on the screen for a perfectly round circle. And you can tap circle here to be able to move it around to place these cheeks. Let's do it about here and then drag in the color. Next, let's make its little basket. Let's tap the plus for a new layer. Again, let's turn on Drawing Assist. And for our brush, let's go back to our studio pen under inking. And for the color, we'll grab this orange. Fifth color in the first row. And let's make a basket. Let's imagine its arms in this area. The basket should be a little bit lower. Think about here. We'll make a straight line. You can tap your finger on the screen for a perfectly horizontal one. And then let's make a curved shape like this. And then drag in the color. And you can adjust it a little bit. Maybe we can make it a little bit wider. Or you can make it more tidy. I think something like this will do. We can make the top part more crisp by using the eraser again. So make a line, hold your pen in place, and tap one finger on the screen. And I think actually we can make the top a little bit more narrow. So we can just use our eraser to carve that. Then it needs a handle. We'll make a new layer underneath. So first we'll go here, then we'll tap the plus. Then for our color, we'll grab this one, third color in the first row. And let's grab the monoline brush again under calligraphy. I want the thickness of the line to stay the same. I want it to be a little bit bigger, maybe 30%. Let's see. I think that's nice. And then let's turn on Drawing Assist. So go to the layer, tap it, turn on Drawing Assist. And then we'll make a curved shape like this. Hold your pen in place. You can tap one finger on the screen so that it's nice and round. Yeah, it should look something like this. Maybe we can make it a little bit thicker here at the top. And on top of this, let's give our ghost hands. Let's tap the plus, and then for the color, doesn't really matter what color you pick as long as it's a color that you can see. So we can use the first color, for instance, because we are going to change the color later. Now let's go back to our inking brushes, use the studio pen, and then let's make two arms. Let's start about here, make a rounded shape like this. Now we can color this in a little bit. Just, it's like a placeholder almost. And another one. Something like this. Maybe we can make this curve a little bit more. Then for a face on the basket, let's go to this layer. Then let's tap the plus. Then let's turn on Drawing Assist. And then for the color, let's grab this third color again in the first row. And let's first make two eyes. Something like this, a little bit creepy. Well, or happy, I don't know. It doesn't look very creepy. Then let's just a curve a little bit. Then let's actually turn off Drawing Assist on the layer. So we can also make something that's not centered. So like a nose, little triangle. Doesn't have to be perfectly symmetrical. You can use the eraser to make the edges or the corners more crisp. And then for a mouth, just make a line like this. And then a curve underneath. And then let's drop in the color. Now again, we can use the eraser and go along this area to make it more crisp. And we can also give it a tooth. Let's go to the selection tool. That's the S-shaped ribbon. Set it to a rectangle. And then select the area where you would like to have a tooth. So here we can make a little square. Then you can go to your layer, tap it, and then use clear. Now it has a nice little tooth. Inside the basket, we need some candy. So we need to make a layer underneath that basket so that the basket will cover our candy. Let's go to this hands layer, and let's tap the plus, and then let's first grab over this one, second color in the second row. Now let's make rounded shape here. And then let's make a pink one. Let's grab this color, light pink, sixth color in the second row. Let's add that here. And now let's make a layer underneath. So first tap this one, then tap the plus, and make another candy there. Let's do an orange one, fifth color in the first row. There. Now we are going to add the paper look to our ghost. Let's start with the cheeks. Let's go to this layer. We are going to duplicate it. So we'll slide to the left, tap duplicate. Then we'll go to the bottom layer and you can turn on alpha lock. Then for the color, we'll grab this one, third color in the first row. Then you can go back to your layer, which has alpha lock turned on, and then you can use fill layer. Then it'll only fill whatever is on that layer with the color we have picked. Now we need to turn off alpha lock, and then we can go to the magic wand, then to Gaussian blur, and then you can slide to the right on your screen. We're going to blur this just slightly, like 2%. Then we'll go to the move and transform tool. That's the arrow here. And then you can just tap outside of this bounding box. So you can tap here and move it slightly downwards and to the right. And then you can tap the arrow. Next, let's go for our basket. Let's go for our basket. Let's slide to the left, tap duplicate, then go to the bottom one, and we'll use the same steps. So first we'll turn on alpha lock, then we'll tap it again and use fill layer. Then we'll turn off alpha lock, and then we'll go to the magic wand and use Gaussian blur. I want the blur to be a bit stronger here, as if the basket is further removed from the paper of the ghost. So the more distance there is, the blurrier the shadow will be. So like 5%, then go to the move and transform tool, and you can either nudge or just move it around like this, downward and to the right. And you know what? Maybe we can fade it even more. You can just go back to the magic wand, to Gaussian blur, and slide to the right even more. So let's do 4% more. And then let's lower the opacity of this shadow. I think it's a bit too dark. So we'll go to the layer, then you can tap the N, and we can set it to 60%. You can just use the slider and set it to 60%. Then let's do the same for the handle. So we'll slide to the left, tap duplicate, go to the bottom one. We don't need to change the color in this case. We can just go to the magic wand, use Gaussian blur, then slide to the right. Let's go for 3% in this case, making it a bit closer to the white paper. Then to the move and transform tool, and downward and to the right a little bit. Then we need to lower the opacity. So we need to go to the layer, tap the N, and set it to 60%. Then let's move on to the hands. We'll slide to the left again, tap duplicate. Then on this layer, we can turn on alpha lock, tap the layer again to use fill layer, and then turn alpha lock off again. Then we'll blur it, go to the magic wand, use Gaussian blur, slide to the right to like 4%, and then go to the move and transform tool, move it down and to the right to about here. But then let's lower the opacity. Let's tap the N, set it to 60%. And then let's also change the color of the hands because our ghost, it doesn't have pink hands, it has white hands. So let's turn on alpha lock, then grab the white, second color in the first row, and then tap the layer again and use fill layer. There, then we can go back to this layer to refine that shadow a bit more. I think it would be nice to have it more visible here on this arm. So let's go back to the move and transform tool, move it a bit more to the right and downwards. And then what I'd like to do is go to the magic wand and then to liquefy. You can set it to push with distortion and momentum set to none. And then we can go in here and push the shadow a little bit towards this corner. Because it's like this paper is cut and it's like flapped open, and then someone put this handle in. So it's lifted from this corner. So here the shadow should be closer to the paper. Here we can push upward a little bit. And then to refine it even more, we can use the eraser, and let's set that to a soft brush. Let's go to the airbrushing brushes, use the soft brush and set it to a small size like 2% or 3 around that area. 100% opacity. And let's get rid of this little edge there as well. Tidy that up a little bit. Now I just feel like we need a tiny bit of shadow here so we can see the top of the arm. So let's go back to liquefy under the magic wand and push a little bit over here. Just so we can slightly see that shadow. I think that's perfect. Now let's do the same for the facial features. Over here, layer 3, let's slide to the left, tap duplicate, then go to the bottom one, and let's set that to 60% opacity already. And then let's go ahead and blur it by going to the magic wand, Gaussian blur, slide to the right to like 3%. Then let's go in here. Then let's go to the move and transform tool, move it down and slightly to the right. And then for this shadow, I'm imagining that it's stuck here in the center, this piece of paper, but maybe it's lifted a little bit on the side. So let's go to the magic wand again to liquefy. Let's make our brush a bit smaller, perhaps, maybe like 25%. And it will lift the shadow here a little bit. Let's make it even smaller, like 18. We'll lift it a little bit so that the shadow is closer there. So here it's nicely stuck to the paper, but here it's lifted a little bit. Do the same. Here we can manipulate it a little bit. Make it a little bit closer. Play around with the size of the brush. I think this is pretty much nicely stuck to the paper, so the shadow should be minimal. Yeah, I think that looks nice. All right, now while you're working like this, you can definitely merge some layers. You can merge these facial feature layers and these as well. And we can merge these. You can also merge these hands. As long as you don't want to make any more adjustments, then feel free to merge these. Now let's move on to the candy. We need to add shadows for those. So we need to duplicate the layers. Let's start with this one, with the orange one. Then let's grab that third color again in the first row. And you can either use the alpha lock trick, but since this is just one shape, you can also just drag it on there. And if you go to your layer, you'll see that it's dark now. Let's lower the opacity to 60%. And then let's blur again. Let's go to the magic wand, Gaussian blur. Let's go for 3%. And then to the move and transform tool to move it a little bit to the right. Then for the next one, the other candies, let's duplicate that layer. Go to the bottom one, and here as well, we can just drag that on there. Then let's go to the magic wand, Gaussian blur, slide to the right to 3%, then to the Move and Transform tool to move the shadow. I actually like that the shadow is a bit darker. Maybe I want to make the other one darker as well for this candy. We can just go to the end, turn up the opacity. Yeah, let's just set it at 100. Then let's go to our basket. Let's turn off Drawing Assist here, and let's turn on Alpha Lock. I'd like to add some lines here. Let's grab a sketching brush for that. Let's go to, where are they, the sketching brushes? Ah, there. Let's use the 6B pencil, and let's grab this color over here, the first and only color in the third row. Let's set the opacity of the brush at 100 and the size perhaps at 20 or 21. Let's see. To make a curved line like this. And on this side as well. Then we just need a shadow for the facial features here. Let's duplicate that layer. Go to the bottom one. Let's lower the opacity. Set it to 60% or 61. Let's see. Yeah, 60. Then go to the magic wand, use Gaussian blur, slide to the right to, let's say, 2%, then go to the Move and Transform tool and move it down and to the right a bit. And here as well, you can use the Liquify tool. You can go in here, set the size to a smaller percentage, and then make the center of these eyes, make them stick more to the paper. Perhaps this corner. I like that look. Next, I'd actually like to turn off that line that we have. We don't need the Symmetry tool anymore, so let's just go to the wrench, to Canvas, and then turn off the drawing guide. And now let's add some more shadow to the ghost itself. So now we can actually merge these pumpkin basket layers, and we can merge that with the facial features and hands of the ghost. But we still have this layer of our ghost. Let's tab the plus for a new layer and set that new layer to clipping mask so that whatever we draw here, it'll only show up on our ghost. And then for our brush, I'd like to use a soft brush under airbrushing. And for the color, we'll use that third color in the first row. Then we are going to use the selection tool. We'll go to the S shape ribbon, set it to freehand, and now we'll make a selection. We'll start in the center of this bump. We'll make a curve up, and then we'll go down like this. Close the selection, then tap your brush, which, by the way, is set to 80% opacity and 20% in size, and then gently go along that edge. I think maybe we can make it even smaller. Sorry, let's go for 12. Gently go along the edge like this. And then turn off the selection and then turn it on again for another selection over here. We'll start at the center here, move up, then down, close the selection, grab the brush. So it's like these areas are folded a bit. And as you can see, I'm painting outside of the selection, so this gets very soft. Then again, make another selection by tapping twice here. Then we'll go here, close the selection, grab the brush, paint on the outside, and then tap the S shape ribbon again. So you can see that it looks as if these parts of the paper are folded a bit. Let's do this again. Let's grab the selection tool and go here, loop around, close the selection, grab the brush, and go along the edge. Then again, for the last one, let's actually do that here this time. I want to make it very subtle in this area. Then let's turn off the selection. So I want to make it subtle there, and that's why I want to use the eraser. It's already set to the soft brush. Let's make it a bit bigger, like 13%. And let's go over here and make this fade a bit. I think this looks very nice. Now what we need is a shadow between our ghost and our base paper, our base pink paper. So let's duplicate this layer. Let's slide to the left, tap duplicate, then go to the bottom layer. And by the way, the reason I added these shadows on a separate layer is because if, well, let's say it was too dark, then you could also always use the opacity of the layer and play around with that. Gives you a bit more control. Now for this bottom one, we are going to use this color, only color in the third row, and we are going to drop it on that shape of our ghost. As you can see, then we are going to blur it. So we'll go to Gaussian blur, slide to the right, and I want quite some distance between the ghost and the paper. So let's go for 10%, then to the move and transform tool and move it down and to the right again. And then tap the arrow again. If you are enjoying this paper cutout project so far, then I think you'll like the project that I have shared at Patreon as well, where we created this paper cutout scarecrow. And that's just one of the more than 200 tutorial videos that I have available at Patreon. So if you are developing a Procreate tutorial addiction, then I think that's the place you need to go. But let's continue with our ghost. So let's add some stuff to our background. Let's make a new layer for that. On top of our background layer, let's tap the plus. For the brush, I'd like to go to the inking brushes, use the studio pen again. And for the color, I'd like to use this one. Second color in the second row. And then it doesn't really matter where you start drawing. I'll go for this area. Let's create a little hexagon shape. We're going to create some candy. Let's drop in the color. Then tap and hold the eraser to make it switch to this inking brush, and create some crisper corners, something like this. But then let's grab the brush again to add a shape like this to each side. Maybe this one's a little bit jagged. Drag in the color, and again you can use the eraser for some crisper corners, crisper edges. Then let's start duplicating this candy so we can have lots of candy around our ghost. You can do that by sliding down with 3 fingers and tapping duplicate. And then let's just, well, you can rotate with this green handle. Let's just find some places where we can put some candy. And tap the arrow. Slide down with 3 fingers again, use duplicate. And repeat this until you have a whole bunch of candy. So every time, swipe down with 3 fingers, tap duplicate. Let's place one here. Duplicate. Of course, you can also duplicate from the layer menu. In case you can't swipe down with 3 fingers, then you can just slide to the left, tap duplicate, and then go to the move and transform tool. But I'll continue duplicating like this. Slide down again, tap duplicate. I'll go for something like this. I need some space for other types of candy and decoration as well. But I do like to change the colors of some of these candies a bit. For this one, this last one, let's grab this pink. That's the 5th color. Let's drag it in there. Then let's tap the layer and turn on alpha lock. And let's add some more color. Let's use this color, 4th color in the 1st row. And let's go in here and add some more color. Let's color the center. And then let's switch back to that bright pink, 5th color in the 2nd row. And we can add some dots. But you can go crazy here. You can add patterns. You can add anything you like. Loads of color and variation for your candy. I'll go to the other one underneath. I'd like that one to be orange, 5th color in the 1st row. I want the same for this one. Then we have the next one here. Let's make that white. Let's use the 2nd color in the 1st row. Then this one. And then we have this one. I'd like that one to be black, 3rd color. And maybe this one has light dots. But you can really just do your own thing here. I'll just give this a bunch of dots. You can find some fun patterns in the treasure chest brush pack. If you don't already have it, you can get it by going to freefromflow.com. But Procreate itself also has some nice patterns. So you can really go wild. Now let's go to this one. Let's make that one orange. Or at least I'll make it orange. You do whatever you like. Then I'll grab white for some dots here as well. Maybe we can change this one a little bit. That's this candy. Let's turn on alpha lock. And I'd like to make the center lighter. Let's grab this color. Maybe we can first make it darker with this color, 1st color. And then let's use this lighter one, 3rd color, for that center part. Now that we have these candies, we can add the shadow. First, merge all of these candies together. Then duplicate the layer, go to the bottom one, turn on alpha lock, and then grab this color, only color in the 3rd row, tap the layer again and use fill layer, then turn off alpha lock, then blur it by going to Gaussian blur. Let's set it to 4%. Then go to the move and transform tool and move it down and to the right. Now the reason I didn't do this with one candy and then duplicate the shadow and the candy at the same time is because then if you would rotate your candy, the shadow wouldn't be proper anymore. It would change the rotation of the shadow and then it wouldn't make sense. So first duplicate your candies and then add the shadow. So now we can merge the shadow layer with the candy layer. And let's make a new layer on top for some more candy. I'd like to use this color, 2nd color in the 1st row. And let's use the monoline brush because I want to create a circle. Let's do that here. Hold your pen in place, tap one finger on the screen for a perfectly round circle, and then drag in the color. That might be a little bit too big. Let's make it a tiny bit smaller. Let's go to the move and transform tool. Make sure it's set to uniform and then drag this handle. So you get something like this. Then let's make a new layer on top. Let's tap the plus, set the new layer to clipping mask. Then grab the brush, go to the inking brush again, to the studio pen, and let's use this red, 4th color in the 2nd row. Let's go in here and create these curves. This is like tiny little lollipop or candy. Then color them in. And then I also want to add a little stick. Let's make another layer underneath. Let's tap the plus, grab that white again, that 2nd color. And let's add a line here. Then grab the eraser and cut off a part here. All right, so now we have our first, and now we can duplicate this. To make it easier and more organized, we can group this first. We can slide to the right on these layers so they are selected, and then group them. And then once you have your group, you can easily duplicate that group, then go to the Move and Transform tool and rotate this and place it wherever you like. And you can just continue doing this until you have a nice variety, nice placement of all of these candies. Maybe one here. Really random. It's nice to zoom out to see the entire picture. So just continue to duplicate until you feel like you've had enough. I'll do one more. Go to the Move and Transform tool, and I'll place one here. I think this is a nice chaos. Then you can go in and change the colors for some of these candies. Let's start with this one. Go to this layer, and you can turn on alpha lock, or you can just and then use fill layer, or you can just grab a color like this pink and drag it on there. And you can do it for multiple candies. Which one is that? It's probably this one. Let's make that one orange. Let's drag it on there. Sometimes it's hard to find the candies, but sometimes you can just switch your layer on and off. Let's grab this color, switch it on and off to find it. Then for that one, let's make that pink, or whatever color you please. And then this one, that should be the top one. Yeah. Let's make that pink as well, but then this one, fourth color. And then for this one, what you can also do is turn on alpha lock on this layer. And then we can add multiple colors, for instance. Let's grab the black. And we can just create a little pattern. Maybe some orange. You can decorate these any way you like. And if you need to switch colors, you can also just tap and hold on your screen to grab a color. I'll go for this. So now we need to add the shadow effect to these. Let's just open all of these groups. And let's pinch the pattern with the circle just to save some space. And then we need to duplicate each of these circles. So we have 2 in each group. Then for the bottom ones, we need to turn on alpha lock. And you can do that by tapping and then turning on alpha lock, or you can slide to the right with 2 fingers to turn it on. I'll just continue tapping. And then for each of these, we need that dark color, that color in the third row. And we need to use fill layer on all of these bottom layers. Like this. Then we need to blur all of these layers. So you need to turn off alpha lock for a layer, then go to the Gaussian blur, and then slide to the right to, well, let's say 3%. Let's just do that for all of these. So one by one. Unfortunately, you can't do this in one go by selecting them all. So 3%. First turn off alpha lock, Gaussian blur, slide to the right to 3%. Almost there. 3%. Then finally this one, turn off alpha lock, Gaussian blur to 3%. And now we can move them all at the same time. So let's select each of these shadow layers like this. Now we have them all selected. Now you can go to the Move and Transform tool and move them down and to the right. And I see that I missed one. How's that possible? Okay, let's place it like this. Where is the other one? Oh, there. I totally forgot about this one. All right, let's just pinch these, duplicate it, go to the bottom one, turn on alpha lock, use fill layer, turn off alpha lock. Then we need to blur again, the 3%, and then go to the Move and Transform tool and place it in the same way as the others. There. Now, if you need to save layer space before you move on to those little sticks, then you can pinch these together, each shadow with the top part. And what we could also do is select all of these little sticks. So I've selected them all, yeah. Then we can tap and hold them, and now we can place them all here at the bottom. And then let's pinch them together. Now we can add a shadow all at the same time. Let's slide to the left, tap duplicate, go to the bottom one, then use alpha lock, tap the layer again, use fill layer, then turn off alpha lock, go to Gaussian blur, slide to the right to 3%, then to the Move and Transform tool, and move it down and to the right a little bit. And then once you have this, you can merge all of these layers together, all this candy, like this. So now we have one layer for these candies and one layer for these. Now let's add some more stuff. Let's tap the plus and let's add star shapes, for instance. Let's go to the 5th color, grab our brush, well, we still have the studio pen, and let's make a star shape. Let's go here with 5 points. So something like this. Let's drag in the color, or just color this in by hand. Then we can use the eraser to fine tune it and make those ends a bit more pointy. What you could also do, let me fix this gap here. What you could also do is, while you have this base, is go to the selection tool and then just make a selection along the inside. Just tap, tap, tap. Now you have a more pointy star. It's not perfect, but that gives it a charm. Let's then use invert, then go to the layer, tap it, and use clear. Now you have a very nice, crisp star. Now let's duplicate this and place it all around. Let's slide down with 3 fingers, tap duplicate, or duplicate it through your layer menu. And just continue doing this, filling up some gaps, rotate the star every once in a while. Then let's duplicate it again, but then let's also make it a tiny bit smaller while you have it set to uniform. Then let's duplicate this smaller star. We're nicely filling up some gaps here. And you can definitely go for your own composition here. I think something like this is nice. Now let's merge these stars together. And then let's give each star, well, not all of them, but let's give them a bunch of different colors. What you can do actually is grab your colors here and then go to your palettes. So we have the palette here. And then it's actually a lot easier to grab and hold your colors, drop them in here. You can use continue filling. If you tap that, then you can just tap the stars that you want to be yellow. But you can also switch colors. You could grab this one, for instance, and then tap here. Maybe this one. Perhaps you'd like some pink. Tap that star. Let's see, we don't have any over there. Let's also create a white star over here. So now we have a nice variety. Or perhaps we can give a different color to this one. Let's make that one that greenish color. And now once you're done, you can just tap this little check mark and you can close this by tapping this little X. Then for the shadows, let's duplicate these stars. Let's slide to the left, tap duplicate, go to the bottom one, then turn on alpha lock. Then we need our shadow color again over here. Then let's tap the layer, turn on fill layer, then turn off alpha lock, and then we'll go to Gaussian blur again. Slide to the right, like 3%, then to the move and transform tool, and move it down and to the right. Then tap the arrow. Now finally, I'd like to add some candy to the scene. Let's first pinch all the candy together. We can do that. Then let's tap the plus, and now we are going to create some candy. Let's grab our monoline brush. We're going to create a bunch of circles with different colors. Let me start with orange, and you can switch your colors along the way, or you can adjust the colors of your circles later. Let's just make a whole bunch of circles. So every time, hold your pen in place. Try to make them about the same size. And I'm just using this to fill some gaps. Well, not just using this, it's also because I like these candies, but you can use them to fill some gaps in the composition. Areas where you feel like it could use some more shape, some filling. Then you can add some of this candy, making loads of orange ones. But of course you can pick any color you like. Let's also switch to this one, third color in the second row. And then once we have all our candies, I'm going to show you a very nice trick to add shadow to them, add shading. Oh, I have a little dot here. We don't need those. I'm going to show you a very nice little trick. Let's also add some white ones with the second color. Oh, that one has a gap. And maybe also some red ones. I think that would be nice. Fourth color, we don't have a lot of red in this scene. I'm just dropping these in and then you can fill them. Perhaps we can have a red one here. That one over here. Then I think we have nicely filled up all the spaces. Now these don't look like candy yet. They need shadow. Let's first start with the drop shadow. Let's duplicate this layer, then go to the bottom one. Then we need our shadow color, this color in the third row. Then we'll turn on alpha lock, then use fill layer, then turn off alpha lock and use our blur again. Gaussian blur, slide to the right to 3%, then to the move and transform tool and move it down and to the right. Then tap the arrow again. And now we are going to add shadow to the candy itself. First, we'll tap this layer with the candy and use select. Now do make sure that color fill is not turned on here. Then use invert. Then tap the plus for a new layer and then drag in a color over here. So we have filled everything around our candy. Then tap the S shape ribbon to turn off the selection. Then let's set this layer to multiply. We'll tap the N, scroll up to multiply, and we'll lower the opacity to like around 73%. So this makes everything a little bit darker. Then we'll tap the layer and use clipping mask. And you can't see any of this right now, but now we are going to blur the layer. We'll go to the magic wand and to Gaussian blur, slide to the right, and you can start, well, if you go high, you'll see that the blur will start to appear on our candy. Let's go for perhaps 5%. You can always go higher. Then go to the move and transform tool and move this up and to the left. So we get a nice soft edge of shadow on the lower right area of our candies. Then tap the arrow again. And then we are going to do something similar, but then for highlights. So again, we'll tap this layer and use select, then use invert. Then we'll make a new layer on top of this one. We'll tap the plus, set it to clipping mask. Then we'll grab this white second color in the first row and drag it on there so that everything around our candy is filled with that light color. For this layer, we are going to use the screen blending mode. So we'll tap the N, go to screen, which is great for light effects. And then we'll set this layer to clipping mask as well. We'll turn off the selection. We'll go to the magic wand again to use Gaussian blur. And a slide to the right for a slight little blur. Let's go for 4%, then go to the move and transform tool and move this down and to the right a little bit for a nice little highlight. Now, I feel like these highlights are a bit too big, well, like all around our candy. So I want to change that. Let's tap this layer and add a mask to it. Then with black, we can drag that in. We can mask everything. So now we can't see those highlights anymore, but once we start drawing on this layer with white, we can make them appear, but we'll have more control. So let's grab the airbrush. Let's then grab white. So double tap here to grab pure white. And now we can go in here. Let's make our brush smaller, perhaps 3%. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's actually nice. And we can go along those edges. We could also go even smaller, like 1% or 2%. Oh, no, that's maybe too small. 3. We can go along all these upper left corners. For the white candy, you can't see it actually. So let's just focus on the colored candies and just add a highlight right in this area. So this way, with just a few easy steps, we have added this candy, 3D candy effect. Now for a final touch for your paper cutout piece, you could add a paper texture to your work. Now what we do need to do then is, let's first move these candy layers to the top over here. And then we can place our paper texture on top of everything that's made of paper. Our candy isn't made of paper, so we just want that over here. I can go to the wrench, then to add, and then to insert a photo to add a paper texture photo like this one. Then we can zoom out a little bit, place that paper over the entire illustration. And then you can go to the layer, tap the N, and set it to linear burn, for instance. And then just lower the opacity so that it's nice and subtle. You could go for 30%, for instance, but it depends on your texture. And there's your paper cutout ghost. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.